Tonight, the infamous Baton Rouge Police Brave Cave. The relentless reporting of our WAFB team blew the lid off of this secret interrogation warehouse, one that some have gone as far as to call a torture warehouse. Our lead investigator, Scotty Hunter, blasted a bright light on this warehouse of secrets. What he found shocked everyone, from the mayor to the police chief to the district attorney. It's reporting that caught your attention, national attention, and the attention of the FBI. And as you'll see tonight, a lot of it focused on the now infamous Baton Rouge Police Street Crimes Unit.
I got it. Chill out, man.
New reporting tonight on this special group of officers tasked with taking back the streets and frequent visitors to the Brave Cave. These types of specialized police units have taken heat across the country. Should they be reined in, or is it what some cities like ours need? We'll also look at new technology that could have stopped a lot of this before it even started. Is there a new tool that could keep everyone honest? And for the first time tonight, we'll hear from a mother whose son's case started it all.
He didn't say he went to the police station. He said he went to a garage.
To a garage, and she says beaten and held for hours.
I think animals got better treatment than they got in the Brave Cave.
The Brave Cave is now permanently closed.
It almost seems like they take people to what we consider a black site, an area where there's not many cameras, where people don't really know about it.
10-4, route to the Brave Cave.
It's a name for when you strip search somebody without legal justification. It is sexual assault.
Route to the Brave Cave.
I was shocked in your story to hear of some location called the Brave Cave.
The mayor shutting it down is not enough. And every officer who has been involved with the illegal strip searching and beating of people in this community should be arrested.
They could hear him screaming, and other officers who were there were saying, "You're up next, do you want some too?"
I have learned that it's been operating for around 10 years.
They can essentially hold you there until they decide what they want to do with you.
How did we get here, and where do we go from here? Those are just some of the questions we'll tackle tonight. Good evening to you, friends. This is a WAFB team special report. I'm Greg Merriweather, here with our lead investigator, Scotty Hunter. Scotty, when you first broke this story, the district attorney said that this could affect hundreds, if not thousands, of cases going back several years. How did we get here?
Yeah, Greg, so several of my sources first told me about someone who they called a rogue officer, Troy Lawrence Jr. He had been accused of some bad and downright dangerous behavior several times for several years. He had even been accused of threatening to beat up his own supervisors. And covering that, we found out Troy Lawrence's father is a deputy chief and one of the chief's right-hand men. And we found out he was a very active member of the Baton Rouge Police Street Crimes Unit. It's the middle of the night, January 9th, 2023, and officers with BRPD Street Crimes Unit are busy questioning someone.
So first of all, state your name, first and last name. Jeremy Lee. Okay.
They're trying to find out about gang activity in Baton Rouge, and they've zeroed in on Jeremy Lee.
What does that tattoo say?
His attorney, Ryan Thompson, says you can even see a knot on Lee's forehead. He claims his client was beaten here while the cameras were off, questioned without legal representation, and held for hours.
Witnesses that were outside of this garage, they could hear him screaming, and other officers who were there were saying, "You're up next, do you want some too?"
Hours before, Lee was arrested when police showed up to Cadillac Street looking for guns and drugs. At one point, officers, including Troy Lawrence Jr., search him. When he ends up on the ground, that officer threatens to beat him.
Hey, I'm about to back the living. Turn your camera on. Turn your camera on. Stop touching me. Stop. Man, I'll turn around. 100% on.
Not long after that, officers have Lee in the back of a unit taking him away. Listen closely and you can hear one of those officers telling others over the radio exactly where they're headed.
10-4, route to the Brave Cave.
Once at the Brave Cave, attorney Ryan Thompson says that's when officers beat Lee so badly that officials at the parish prison refused to take him until he was sent to the hospital and treated for a fractured rib and other injuries.
It feels, I want to say Afghanistan-like, as if this is some type of war zone and these are enemy combatants that are being interrogated for information, so it's very concerning.
One of the officers allegedly responsible for that gang-style beating, Troy Lawrence Jr. It's not the first time that same officer has been on our radar for alleged misconduct. In fact, the WAFB team's review of his internal affairs history earlier this year turned up a number of alleged misconduct incidents carried out by that same officer, some of which cost you thousands of dollars to make lawsuits against him go away. Troy Lawrence Jr. resigned before he could be fired days after we first exposed alleged abuse inside the Brave Cave, and he's even been arrested for a battery charge after police say he used a stun gun on a man in his custody back in August.
Hey, what's up? If you don't shut the up, I'm telling my mama, man. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna you up.
On New Year's Day 2020, that officer can also be heard here cursing out a teenager following a traffic stop.
This is her car. I think my car was about right here.
Here he is again, muting his body camera before snatching a woman out of her car by her wrists at the tail end of a fender bender. According to Internal Affairs paperwork, Troy Lawrence Jr. has also been accused of trying to fight his own supervisors on 2 separate instances while working extra duty in Tigerland in 2021.
Look what he's doing! He's harassing this man and punching on him.
The same former officer is accused of punching and pulling a man's hair while trying to get him in the back of a police car last year.
Hands off. Get your hands off. Get your hands off. I'm about to go. Get your hands off.
That officer can also be seen here trying to yank a man out of his car after demanding he leave the front of a hospital back in October.
I Adderall and my Xanax.
He's also accused of taking this 52-year-old grandmother to the Brave Cave just a few months ago, where she claimed she was strip searched and had to undergo a body cavity search by a female officer. The wrongful arrest allegedly stemming from some prescription drugs. Despite that woman repeatedly telling officers she could show proof of the medication, they took her to the facility anyway.
They were looking for something. They didn't find it. Why she was taken to the Brave Cave and again searched and the body cavity search was done, I don't know.
She tried several times to tell officers that I have a prescription for the pills that you all are concerned about. Why would they not just let her show them that proof there at the scene rather than transporting her?
Part of that investigative process is interviewing those officers, and we'll interview those officers to determine what those actions were.
When we brought these allegations to Chief Murphy Paul, he said what we found was so concerning, he took it to the FBI.
Because it was your story when I first paid attention to what's going on. I had never heard of the Brave Cave before.
The chief says the most important thing is to investigate to determine whether these are isolated incidents or a case of much larger and widespread corruption within the agency.
Now, Scotty, this has already led to some changes that really have kind of rocked the department.
Yeah, Greg, those changes were swift and immediate, many of them coming within days of our initial report. Officer Troy Lawrence Jr. resigned and has now been formally charged with battery, accused of purposely tasing a handcuffed man. He joins his father, Deputy Chief Troy Lawrence Sr., Sergeant Jesse Barcelona, Corporal Todd Thomas, and Corporal Doug Schutz. All of these officers face charges in connection with the Street Crimes Unit. And Greg, they all remain on leave.
So even with some of these changes, some of you have told us that they didn't come fast enough. How did the Brave Cave exist for so long in secret? Do you believe the Chief of Police when he says it was Scotty's story where he first learned about it? Up next, for the first time, we'll hear from the mother of the young man whose case basically started it all. She sat down with Scotty and what she says really happened inside this warehouse behind us.
Once the chief was able to visit it, as well as the mayor, I hope she gets to visit it. They'll be able to fear and feel what it felt like to be inside of this. So I hope that eventually it's torn down.
You've heard a lot about the Brave Cave, but tonight and for the very first time, you're hearing directly from those affected by what happened inside these walls. We sat down with Jeremy Lee's mother, who tells us exactly what happened to her son and what her family's been through since.
Check his pocket, son. Check, man, stop doing that. Stop pulling away from it. Man, I'll get on the ground. Do not, I'll get on the ground.
Jeremy Lee was forced to the ground and arrested back in January when officers showed up to a North Baton Rouge neighborhood looking for drugs and guns.
Hey, man, you black? That don't mean in my pocket. Hey, I'm about to grab me in. Turn your camera on.
But what happened after that, his mother says, was a clear example of police officers abusing their power, and unfortunately her son is still paying for it.
It's sickening. I mean, it gives you this feeling in your stomach that is undescribable because you don't know what all took place there.
Lee was taken to the Brave Cave, a secretive warehouse just steps away from BRPD's 1st District, a place where some officers take certain people in their custody. In this case, it's where Lee was allegedly beaten so badly he had to be taken to the hospital before he could be booked into prison. His mother, Tamara Green, says she still remembers the call she got that night.
He did give me a call. Immediately I can tell something was wrong by the sound of his voice. And I asked him, was he okay? And he said that he was not. He proceeded to tell me that he was taken to essentially a place that he called a garage, that they had gang style beat him. It was 3 officers, and that he had to go to the emergency room.
Just as a mother, what was it like hearing that your son had been abused in that way?
As soon as he said that, as soon as he mentioned that he had to go to the emergency room and he had a fractured rib, I can't remember any details of the phone call after that. I mean, I knew that I could not cry, because if I started crying, he was going to start crying, and I didn't want him crying in that setting, especially with the conditions he was under.
This mother tells me she also can't help but wonder if more happened to her son than what he's willing to share.
I'm sure that he has not given me all the details because I am his mother, but I feel that more than just what he told me took place, and I can only imagine for the others that have been there what took place with them.
Lee is one of a handful of people who have now come forward saying they too were taken to the Brave Cave. Some say they were beaten, while others claim illegal strip searches and other alleged violations were carried out by certain members of BRPD's Street Crimes Unit.
I think animals got better treatment than they got in the Brave Cave.
Green says the moment her son was taken there, she knew she had to take action, so she filed a complaint, but she believes that complaint ultimately fell on deaf ears.
A couple hours later, I did receive a call from Chief Murphy Paul. He told me that he got my email and that someone will follow up with me.
Did that follow-up ever happen?
No.
She says nothing happened until months later when her attorney followed up. When the WAFB team started asking questions about the case, the chief admitted they had dropped the ball. It's a mistake this mother says her son will now have to live with for the rest of his life, though she is thankful things did not go as far as they could have.
The bruises that have healed but are still there will be there for the rest of his life. But I'm more grateful that I still have my son. I can still talk to him. I can still love on him and hug him and see him. A lot of parents don't get that opportunity. So overall, that's what I'm more grateful for.
While she is grateful for that, this mother does want the officers involved to be arrested. She wants accountability, and she wants a permanent end to the Brave Cave.
So I hope that eventually it's torn down.
Well, Greg, above everything, that mother tells me she just wants justice, not just for her son, but for everyone who was taken to this place.
You know, Scotty, when y'all first blew the lid off of all this, the mayor hastily called a press conference.
Yeah, she did call that press conference, and she made some immediate changes, though she has gotten some pushback from some people who believe she hasn't gone far enough.
This facility will remain closed permanently, and it will not be used for policing activities going forward. Additionally, Chief Paul has terminated the operations of the Street Crimes Unit.
And for the most part, this community has been trusting of what the mayor and the chief have told us. Now, what we are finding out is that somebody lying, because we're finding out that people are being stripped and beat up in this facility, and telling me you shut it down ain't enough. If people broke the law in here, they need to do something about it. The people in this community need to be aware of what is going on and what the leadership of this city is allowing to happen. And if you, as the black woman mayor of this city, will allow a black woman to be tortured by the police department and those officers not be jailed, why do we need you there? Election year is next year, don't forget it.
As you heard there, the mayor disbanded the now infamous Street Crimes Unit. These special police units are nothing new to law enforcement. When we come back, should they be a thing of the past or just what cities across the country need to tackle a rising crime?
The Street Crimes Unit has been disbanded. We have actively engaged the FBI to ensure thoroughness. And as you just heard from Chief Murphy Paul, arrests have been made.
Specialized street crime units, they've proven to be effective, but they've also proven to be downright deadly.
The Justice Department will look at these units across the country, but in the meantime, are they really keeping you safer, or are they a breeding ground for police misconduct? We asked the experts. Memphis, Tennessee, January 7th, 2023. Tyree Nichols is pulled over for a traffic stop, and members of the Memphis Police Department Scorpion team are looking to make an arrest.
Turn your around. All right.
At some point during the encounter, officers began brutally beating the man and using their stun guns on him. Eventually, body camera video shows Nichols slumped over along the side of a police unit, and it's several minutes before he's given any kind of medical attention. Tyree Nichols died days later in the hospital. Around the same time, January 9th, here in Baton Rouge.
Man, you doing shit, check, man, stop doing that. Stop pulling away from it. Man, I'll get on the ground. I'll get on the ground.
The Baton Rouge Street Crimes Unit take Jeremy Lee into custody.
Be your own people out here tripping. You not my people, dog. All right, man, you black. That don't mean stop ripping my pockets. Hey.
He's arrested and hours later finds himself in the Brave Cave, where he's allegedly beaten so badly he has to be taken to the hospital and treated for a fractured rib. Both arrests were carried out by members of specialized police forces, certain groups of officers usually tasked with taking back the streets by tackling specific crime within the city.
These specialized units are a representation or reflection of people's fear of crime. Think about it. You know, we saw a high influx of the genesis of many of these units back in the 80s and 90s when we had these increases in violent crimes in many cities across the U.S.
Thaddeus Johnson is an assistant professor of criminal justice at Georgia State University. He also has a unique perspective as a former Memphis police officer. He says the problem with these specialized units is oftentimes they operate with a lack of oversight, something he calls a recipe for disaster.
The scary part is that with these units, this behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. This behavior is allowed, and maybe in some cases encouraged.
Johnson considers the units a necessary evil. While they are designed to keep cities safer, they can sometimes lead to officers going rogue. But he believes it doesn't happen overnight, and more often than not, he says those officers are just doing what they think is right.
Most of these guys and gals have a crime fighter mentality, and they may be doing this with the noblest of causes. We're trying to clean up our streets, and police officers take crime in their precincts, in their zones, personally. And so it's not like these officers don't have good intentions, but I always tell people that the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions. And it's the same things with these units.
Johnson tells me there are examples of these specialized police units doing good work in the communities they serve.
And many times when they use the intelligence-driven policing, they work well, and they can have good relationships with the communities that they're working in. But unfortunately, many times we just turn to the run and gun and lock up more people for more things as a response to higher crime levels.
Certain things do make sense.
Attorney John Collins has done a lot of work with those who have been wrongfully convicted. He believes many times these specialized police units only make that problem worse.
I think it's highly likely that those specialized police units could lead to things like wrongful convictions or throwing people in prison who have done relatively minor things, and those same people get exposed and abused by the system.
With the units in place, typically the crime numbers do take a dip, but Collins questions at what cost. Now that the district attorney's office is looking into hundreds, if not thousands of cases touched by BRPD's street crimes unit, that could lead to some cases being thrown out and some bad actors to remain on the streets.
Ends do not justify the means.
One way to prevent the questionable tactics carried out by some members of these specialized police units is through training. That's where community partners like the Louis A. Berry Civil Rights and Justice Institute comes in. Director Ada Lumpkin says they've done a lot of work to identify trauma certain pockets of the community face and to make sure law enforcement is aware of and responsive to it.
That basic understanding, I think, allows us to be more accepting of the present situation, not forgetting what has happened in the past, but I think to reconcile and remedy some of the mistrust and distrust with the system.
The group has already trained Southern University Police as well as the Baker Police Department, and they hope to expand to other agencies in the future. It's this kind of training, Johnson says, puts police forces and these specialized units on the right path.
Do we still need specialized units? Yes, but we need better supervision, oversight, and training and transparency.
The Justice Department says its review of these specialized units will lead to some new guidelines for police chiefs and mayors across the country to make sure that they are doing the right thing in terms of making sure that someone is watching over them.
In fact, I got a first-hand look at one way some departments are using to move in that direction. They're actually using artificial intelligence, AI, to monitor officers and really all of us. Technology that promises to separate the tremendous number of good officers from these bad apples. As for the current chief, Murphy Paul, he is set to retire, but he's not going away quietly.
Union. There are 5 people on the Civil Service Board. What's wrong with good law-abiding citizens? You putting people on the Civil Service Board with direct ties to the union and wonder why they reverse the decisions that I make. I've been quiet, but I'm not going to be quiet no more. And you know what you do? You strip my funding. Are you going to pay the attorney all the money that I already owe them for the bad cops that the Civil Service Board, where we're going to be here tomorrow, and none of y'all going to be here. And y'all sitting here trying to deal off these people's emotions, and some of y'all the problem. Jen Rocker, you sit there, defund the police department's budget from a legal standpoint, and then come here because I don't have legal representation and I got to play lawyer to fight these bad actors. Let's talk facts. You putting people on the Civil Service Board with direct ties to the union and wonder why they reverse the decisions that I make. I've been quiet, but I'm not going to be quiet no more. Where were you when they called my kids gangbangers? Where were you? You know about the pictures when they called my black boys gangbangers and I prayed for them. When the former chiefs of police sit down and share pictures of me and my girlfriend, and I prayed for them. Where were you, Mocha? When they went to Texas, to the camp, they called me a nigga because I was trying to bring reform in this police department. Where were you then, speaking up for them? Don't sit here and play like you don't know about this group of body that try to force the mayor to sit there and fire me for lies and say I only discipline white folks, which is a lie.
The chief there lashing out at council members, pointing and calling them out by name. Several of the council members questioned whether the chief should take himself off of the Brave Cave investigation altogether and let the FBI and others handle it. After this outburst, at least 3 council members asked the chief to resign or for the mayor to fire him.
Be strong!
The mayor stood by her chief, and several community members even offered prayer and support for the chief. Meanwhile, the possible criminal acts inside this secret building that brought all of this on, they are now a part of almost a dozen different investigations underway at the Baton Rouge Police Department.
Greg, the mayor has even hinted at a citizen review board, an independent body that will review police policies and procedures. Though she's announced that, it is still just in the early planning stages.
You know, Scotty, your reporting's uncovered several people who say they've made trips here to the Brave Cave or had crazy encounters with the Baton Rouge Street Crimes Unit. I've been tracking a new piece of AI technology that could have perhaps prevented some of this before it even started. The majority of police body camera footage goes unwatched or at least unreviewed. It usually takes something bad or a serious complaint for most things to come to light.
Oh, now, please.
Like the lawsuit that came from this video, where Baton Rouge police officer Troy Lawrence, whom you've heard so much about, is trying to get some men to leave the hospital.
Putting your hands on me, bro.
Hold the car. Bro, you ride on him? Bro, get in the car and go.
Your camera recorded all that. You feel me?
Get in the
your
car,
camera recorded all that.
Get in the car and roll.
Your camera recorded all that.
Come on.
Okay, no, you can't just pull me out my car, bro. I'm trying to...
As you see, the officer's camera did record everything. Now imagine if artificial intelligence automatically reviewed that video that night. Anthony Tassoni co-founded a company called Trulio. They use artificial intelligence to review every body camera from every officer for every shift. So right now you say about 1% of all body camera footage for police departments and sheriff's departments is actually being looked at or reviewed. With this new AI technology, how much of that would then be looked at?
100% of all the videos get analyzed, and then we curate the most important stuff to the sergeant.
Officer Troy Lawrence Jr. first popped up on the radar when he had threatened to beat up his supervisor and then had several questionable run-ins with the public. In total, that was 3 years and over $100,000 worth of lawsuits to go. Lawsuits you paid to have settled.
Have different criteria that we can flag upon. So of course your things like profanity, or what we call directed profanity, where I may say a curse word versus I'm saying a curse word directly to you or insulting you.
Kevin Mitchell is an IT specialist at the Oxford Police Department in Oxford, Alabama. They use the Trulio program.
If it detects certain keywords as far as a pursuit, it'll flag that. If there's a use of force where either we're going hands-on with a subject or there's some type of altercation that breaks out during the course of that video, it flags that. It can also be as granular as to tell when we are actually arresting somebody. And so we have all these cues, and every time these high priority cues are flagged, we get email alerts saying, hey, this officer had this type of interaction, this video is ready to be reviewed.
I'm about to take a shot!
Something like the Trulio software promises to pick up on cues and questionable interactions long before anyone is injured or loses their career. It even picks up an officer's good behavior.
Now, a lot of what Trulio surfaces is positive behavior, positive interactions, officers collecting civilian gratitude, for example, because we want the officers to be caught doing good. We want them to get recognized for doing a good job. We think that's super important to improve officer morale and recruiting and retention around this country.
It definitely protects the public in that if it can sense a pattern of behavior from an officer, whether he's talking down to the public or anything like that, it can be addressed a lot quicker than if it has to be found out by a supervisor or something like that, because not everybody calls and complains whether they're treated correctly or not.
I'm doing it! What is that doing, man? You just punched me. Give my phone! Wait, just wait a minute!
So it's possible that software like Trulio might have picked up on some of the complaints against Officer Troy Lawrence as they continue to escalate, but that would have also required honest supervisors watching over him. So we should have a new chief in place soon. No doubt we'll be following up with that person to see if this or something similar is something they might look at to really protect all of us and the officers.
While we wait for that, though, many of you have come forward saying that you have had trouble filing complaints with the police department, and the chief has even admitted that they have dropped the ball a time or two. So what is the best way to do that? We dive into it when we come back.
Right now, if we're looking at 1 or 2 to 8 officers, and the cases that they make, they're fairly proficient at what they do, and that's a lot of cases for us to go through. You know, do we have to look at every body camera of every officer on every case? We're talking about hundreds, possibly 1,000, and what happens if somebody's already pled guilty? And so those are questions that we're going to have to answer. The other question is, how far back do you go? So this can cost us a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it's one that now that you just have to do.
If you don't shut the up, I'm telling my mama, man, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna you up.
10-4 en route to the Brave Cave.
And this is not one situation. This is a continual situation.
This, in fact, arguably is going to make it more unsafe.
The people that we trust and elected are not doing it.
When certain people get power, they assert that power all over us.
It is very problematic from the very beginning of the stop.
I had never heard of the Brave Cave before.
The Brave Cave is now permanently closed.
People hear that there's an active investigation. We are seeing others are coming forward. And I don't know if they would have come forward if your story had not broken first. So I think that has given some in the community some courage to come forward.
The chief of police is asking anyone who has faced abuse or any other type of misconduct inside the Brave Cave to come forward. You can always show up in person to headquarters, or, and it's a little complicated, you can file online. There are several steps here. Type in brpd.com, go all the way to the right and hover over How Do I? And then you'll see in the middle of the page under Contact BRPD, click on File a Complaint. You may be needed for an interview so that the internal affairs team can properly investigate your complaint. We also have a link taking you directly to that tip form on our website, WAFB.com.
You know, it was Scotty's story that got the ball rolling, but really it is your story, and it's not cliche. The WAFBI team really is here for you.
Yeah, Greg, that's our mission. We really are here to tell your story. That's why we've made it easy to do that. All you have to do is search us on the 9 News app or email us at iteam@wafb.com.
Thank you, Scotty, and a big thanks to all of you out there for watching tonight. We hope this was helpful. So from a now shuttered Brave Cave, where the story really is just beginning, and from all of us here at WAFB News,
good night.